Good morning, everybody. Today is February 15th. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Last week we were talking about Zone 1, body control. This week we're going to be talking about Zone 2, which is arm control and the power package. And then next week we'll be talking about hand control. Two, three. So we're going to be talking about the arms today, the power package, arms, power package, this triangle between shoulders, arms, and the hands. This is the power package. This is where we're going to accumulate power, 4 accumulators, 4 pressure points. But really we're going to focus on Clubhead power. We'll talk a little bit about release motions of power accumulator number 2 and number 3. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning. So I'll wait a few more minutes for some people to show up. So we can cock number 2, we can turn number 3, we can bend our right elbow, power accumulator 1, 2, and 3. So over the last 3 weeks, last week, this week, and next week, we're going to cover the 3 zones. Zone 1 is body control, which is the pivot and balance. Zone 2 is the clubhead control, which is power and force using the arms. And Zone 3 is ball control, which is the hands and direction. But today we're going to talk about Zone 2, which is the arms, the power package. We want to look at clubhead power. You hear me talking often about when you can control the club shaft, the club head, and the club face, you can control the ball. And so today we're going to be focused on the club head and the club head power. When we get power, we can get a lot of power from cocking the wrist and turning it. David. So Zone 2 is all about clubhead control. We're using the arms to develop power and force. Power and force. So we'll talk about power accumulator number 2. When we cock the lead hand, there's power there. And then when we turn, there's power accumulation there. That's number 3. And so we talked a couple weeks ago about hinge motions. We got horizontal, we got perpendicular, we got rotational. So horizontal, perpendicularly, when we cock up this club, there's accumulation right there, power. And we're using this arm, lead arm, part of the power package with the trail arm. So if I take my lead arm and I come across my chest and elevate up, there's an angle that's created there. That's power accumulator number 4. There's an angle created between my shaft and my lead arm. That's power accumulator number 2. So the power package, this is the left arm and the club. There's power there. And then when I bend my right arm, there's power accumulator number 1 there. And when I turn back, that's power accumulator number 3. And when I put them all together, I cock and turn, there's 2 and 3. I bend my right elbow, there's 1. And I create an angle between my left arm and my chest, there's 4. So there's 4 power accumulators in the power package in Zone 2. Remember, we have impact fix, we have address, we have startup, backstroke, top, and in this backswing motion, we've accumulated power by cocking, turning, bending the right elbow, and just lifting up the left arm. So that's how we accumulate the power. Then we have the downstroke, the release, impact, follow through, and finish. So when we get to the release, we're going to be talking about the release motion of power accumulator number 2 and power accumulator number 3. So there's two ways to have this release motion, and there's two separate motions. There's wrist motion, cocking and uncocking, and then there's hand motion, which is turning and rolling. And when we get from the downstroke here and we start to release the club, we can do it simultaneously or we can do it sequenced. And simultaneously would be taking, if I cock number 2 and I turn number 3, I would have a hitting motion where I just simultaneously release them both at the same time. It's more muscle power. It's straightening out the right arm, just a karate chop, and it's a release simultaneously at and through the ball. From the downs in this view, you would finish right here and then follow through here. So that's a hitter's action where it's simultaneously. A swinger's action, and that's the hitter's action is using centripetal force. A swinger's action is using centripetal force. So there's a point where as soon as I start down, the release is going to happen in a sequence. Automatically, this number 2 power accumulator is going to release on its own with centripetal force. And as that releases, that momentum is going to carry this rolling through number 3 right through there. And so as I pull down, it releases automatically in a sequence. It would release power accumulator number 2, power accumulator number 3. The club head is going to release. So if I just get here and I just drop this down, that releases automatically. This power accumulation number 2, this angle here, as soon as I get to a certain point, physics is going to just cause that to release automatically. That's number 2. It just happens automatically. It happens in a sequence, so it goes from 2 to 3, where this rolling motion just happens as part of a sequence. So that's a swinger's action where once I get up here and if I just pull down, the release will happen automatically in a sequence from 2 to 3. Whereas if I get just to the top and I want to hit with muscle power and take this bent elbow and release that tricep, that would be a hitter's action, and I would take accumulation number 2 and accumulation number 3 to the top, and I would release them at the same time, simultaneously, in a hitter's action. So we have 4 power accumulators and 4 pressure points. So if I just accumulate power accumulator number 2 and number 3, and I have to take a backswing, so I'm using 1 and 4, but I'm not consciously using them. I'm really focused on just cocking and turning, and now I'm at the top, so then I'm going to take and do my hitter's action. My hitter's action is to simultaneously release 2 and 3. 3 is this way, and this 2 is uncocking. So we have the cocking of 2 and release of 2, and we have the turning of 3 and rolling of 3. And I'm going to do that in a simultaneous action by hitting the ball at the 430 line, down, out, and forward at a low point just below in front of the ball. So that was a hitter's action where I simultaneously released 2 and 3. 2 and 3, just like that, and the face is slightly angled, which would cause a nice little fade. Now the sequence release, where I pull down, and then I have more of a horizontal hinge. We'll talk about hinge motions next week as well. We can actually discuss that right now. We talk about what the hands are doing. We have a flat left wrist, and so there's hinge motions where we can have this club face vertical to the sky, we can have it horizontal to the sky, or we can have it angled. So horizontal would be where you would be in a sequenced release, where you're releasing number 2 and then number 3, you get to your impact, you follow through right there, horizontal, the face is horizontal, and then finish. With the hitter's action, where I'm using and releasing 2 and 3 simultaneously, I'm hitting through the ball, the angle, there's an angle hinge there as far as the club face, and then momentum carries me around. So you want to remember, educate the hands, and you can always educate the hands just by practicing with your left wrist. What is it doing at impact? So today we're talking about, see if there's any questions. Today we're talking about clubhead control, the power that comes from the arms. There's power and force. We really look at accumulating this power package, this triangle, from cocking number 2 power accumulator to creating a small angle with the left arm and the shoulder. And as we release this angle here, that's power accumulator number 4. And as we uncock the left wrist, that's power accumulator number 2 release. And then as we bend the right elbow, there's power accumulator number 1. That's full power right there. I can release that power number 1 by extending out the tricep. It's power accumulator number 1, or release number 1. And I can simply turn the club head back, turn the forearm back, turn the hand back. This is power, and then this is release of power. So you turn it back and you roll it through. So I can simply turn it back, and I can use 1 and 3 at the same time, where I turn back and I bent my right elbow, and I can take and release by straightening out the right elbow and rolling over that forearm. So you can practice the feel of all these separate power accumulators. So I can do 3 and 1. Now, as I'm doing these movements, obviously the other accumulators are being activated, but I'm only focusing on the ones that I'm talking about. So I want to focus on bending my right elbow. So if I just focus on bending my right elbow, and I don't have any turn back, I'm not using power accumulator number 3, I'm just using 2 and 1 right here. So I can bend my right elbow. Remember, this is all part of the power package, the arms. What are the arms doing during the swing? What motions and movements they're doing. So the wrist can do a couple things. They can have there's a motion that you can have a wrist motion, and hand motion. The wrist can go up and down, and the hands can go roll and turn. And when I cock up the left wrist, that's power accumulator number 2. And when I turn this forearm, the right forearm, that's power accumulator number 3. And when I bend my right elbow, that's power accumulator number 1. So I can sit here and practice small little swings. So I can cock, I can turn. So here I have a 6-iron in my hand. You can sit out there on the driving range working on these motions. So here I can turn, cock, turn and cock, and bend my right elbow. And this is also part of the finesse sequence with the wedge. You know, you're basically just getting, or the distance wedges, you're just getting to your 7 o'clock, 7:30 swing, your 9 o'clock swing. So this is a really good exercise to practice your distance wedges, just training what ways to accumulate power. I cock, and I turn, and bend my right elbow. There's a 9 o'clock swing. Educate the hands. Educate the hands. Must have educated hands. How you educate the hands? Know what the wrists are doing, the wrist motion, and the hand motion. So horizontally, the wrist can do this. Perpendicularly, the wrist can do this. And rotationally, the hands can do this. So zone 2 is all about arm control, and arm control equals power and force. Power and force. Any questions here, guys? Because good golf is power golf. And you don't want to be misled by accuracy problems. So let's talk more about the release, educating the hands. So as we go back to impact fix, we're here in address. We've got startup, got the backstroke, and we got the top. Got start down, and then right here is the release. This release sequence, you can either do it simultaneously or sequenced. Simultaneously, you're probably training that consciously to where you're going to take simultaneously, you're going to unhock, and you're going to roll. So simultaneously, I'm going to get to the top, and I'm going to direct everything I have at the 430 line at and through the ball. It's a hitter's action. It's controlled. It's powerful. And all I have to do is simply just cock 1, 2, and 3. That's my full backswing right there. Now, obviously, momentum's going to carry me a little bit further, but I can sit here and use power cue number 2, number 3, and number 1, and then I can direct all my force, and I can release the club head number 2 and the turning, the rolling number 3 at the same time. At the same time. And that would be a hitter's action. And that would be down, out, and forward through the ball at the 430 line, and I'm going to visually look an inch or 2 in front of the ball at a low point, and so I can just do this small compact swing here to there.
how many times, his many times with 2 and 3 while drilling.
How many times will it take you to be a subconscious habit? 3 minutes a day for 21 days? I mean, by now, we've been doing, since January 1, we've been working on our grip. So you should have a perfect grip. You should have an understanding of where the power accumulators are in the grip. Power accumulator number 2, pressure point number 2 is right here in the 3 fingers of the left hand. So that's pressure point number 2, power accumulator number 2. We got pressure point number 1, which is pressing down on the thumb. This is power accumulator number 1. We've got our most important secret weapon, the side of the index finger, which is power accumulator pressure point number 3, Clubhead Control. Remember, it's all about Clubhead Control. Zone 2 is all about Clubhead Control. Power. So there's power by pressing my number 3 pressure point against the shaft. You see the shaft is bending. This is impact, and I'm pressing down, out, forward through that line. I'm not trying to hit the ball. I'm trying to swing all the way to here, and the ball is getting in the way because I've got a proper stance. I've got proper distance from the ball. We spent weeks and weeks and weeks working on stance and posture. The ball just gets in the way. If I get set up, so I'll swing where there's no ball. I'm going to get my stance posture, take my backswing practice, and there's a swing. Well, the reason we practice and drill stance and posture and ball position for 21 days over and over and over is because the ball is just going to get in the way of low point. The ball is going to get in the way of low point. And I'm swinging through that ball. The ball is just in the way. We are developing a swing. We are swinging on an inclined plane in a circle. And we're using pivot motion, we're using arm motion, and we're using hand control of the club head. So we're just training our body to swing to a full finish, very full finish for a standard golf shot. So how many times will it take you to instill this? I don't know. Science says, 3 times a day for 21 days should do it. 30 minutes a day. I recommend doing it in 2 to 3 minute segments. I can sit here for 2 minutes and I can work on cocking and turning, and I can do that over and over and over. Cock and turn. Now I can bend my right elbow and I'm fully loaded in my backswing. Well, what do I do to start the downswing? What did I do to start the backswing? My hands, then my arms, then my shoulders, then my hips. Well, what do I start down? Hips, arms and shoulders, hands. We have all these stations from last week. We have impact fixed. There's where I'm going to be at impact. We've got tons of drills, and the best drill ever is pulling the sword on the ground to make sure that you get to your follow through and finish. You do not want to finish at the ball. The ball just gets in the way of having a correct grip, stance, posture, ball position. And the ball just gets in the way. So we have our impact fixed. We have our address. We have our startup. Educate the hands. Hands are starting it. Hands and arms. We have our backstroke. We have our top. We have our start down. We have our start down, start down, start down. We have our downstroke. We have our release. Sequenced simultaneously. We're releasing power accumulator number 2 and number 3. So you can see here from the downstroke to the release and practice and just feel that club head. Number 2 power accumulator is releasing. Number 3 is releasing by rolling. So it's cock. Number 2 is uncocking, and number 3 is rolling. So we got release, we got impact, we got follow through, and we got finish. I can see myself on this camera. So you can get a camera, you can get a mirror, you get a mirror at Walmart for $6, and you can simply do this over and over and over to where you cock and turn. That's startup. Cock and turn, that's startup. Backstroke. Top. My hands are at the shoulder height, top. Start down. Downstroke. Release, release. Impact. Follow through, finish. There's 4 ways to accumulate power in the golf swing. Number 1, bend the right elbow. I release, I've accumulated power here, and I release it by straightening out the tricep. Number 2, I cock the lead hand. There's power in this angle. This angle formed between the shaft and my arm, there's power there. And in the release sequence, it can happen by itself with centrifugal force, naturally, or you can use muscle power by straightening out the right tricep. Karate chop. So there's hitter's action, which is all muscle power, meaning I'm going to take from the top my accumulation of 2 and 3 and 1, and I'm going to start down, and I'm going to fire this tricep and number 2 and number 3 at the ball, through the ball, simultaneously. So we got 1, cocking is 2. Power accumulator number 3 is just a turning motion of the hand, the forearm, the club face. It's a turning motion back, and then we release it by rolling it through. And that number 3 release happens on a downswing automatically because it's trailing number 2, which happens automatically if you just pull down. Once I pull down, the energy has to force this circular motion to release at low point. There's a low point, which low point is typically past the ball. So that's why we put the ball at a certain point. You're going to find out where your low point is simply by taking practice swings and see where the lowest point of the club is, and then you put the ball a ½ inch, 1 inch, 2 inches behind it to make sure that you hit the ball first, down, out, and forward through the ball. You strike the ball on a descending blow. The angle of the club face with the grooves imparts spin on it, compresses it, forces it to go up. Hey, what's up, Randy? So, lastly, we talked about zone 1, which is body control. What are your feet, knees, hips, hip turn, shoulder turn doing with all in balance and dynamic balance during the swing? Today, it's all about zone 2, which is power, the arms, and the power package. Arm control equals power and force. Arm control equals power and force. So I'm controlling the arms. I'm going to control power accumulator number 4. I can simply take my left arm and form an angle, a high vertical angle, a just right angle, or a flat angle. It's based on my body, what my body's capable of doing. There's my groove right there. I can take this arm and come right across my chest. Probably if this is flat and this is steep, somewhere right between will be right there. So that's power accumulator number 4. Well, there's pressure between the bicep and the chest muscle. There's pressure there. And as I feel that pressure and I accumulate power here, when I start down, my downstroke, I can fling this pressure, number 4, I can fling it right off my chest and make that my conscious training. I can just train power accumulator number 4. Don't even worry, I've got the perfect grip. The hands are on there nice and easily. I can simply just focus on number 4. I'm going to work on number 4. I can work on number 4 for 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes in the night, and 3 minutes in the midday, and I can do that for a week. And I would know exactly where my left arm is. And if I want to focus on not only the backswing, but I want to focus on releasing number 4 off my chest, down, out, and forward through the ball, I can focus on power accumulator number 4 and pressure point number 4. So I can train power accumulator number 4 by itself. So I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. I know what it sounds like. I know what it smells like. I can sense it. I can feel it. I can see it in the mirror. I can sense it where the weight is on my feet. I can sense what my knees are doing. All focusing on number 4 power accumulator. So when I train, even without hitting the ball, you can do this without hitting the ball, I can sense number 4 power accumulator right there. I can feel nice slow backswing. I can feel the weight is in my feet, my knees, my hips, my arms, my shoulders. I can train that. You can swing. If it takes you 4 seconds to make a swing, how many of those can you do in a minute? At least 12 with a break. So 12 times 3 minutes, 36 reps. You do 36 reps in 3 minutes, just focusing on power accumulator number 4. I can do the same thing with power accumulator number 3. How many times can I just roll it back? Or turn it back? I can just turn it back. What does this resemble? Finesse swing, up the plane, toe up. Up the plane, toe up. Up the plane, toe up. This is the finesse swing sequence. So I can sit here and focus on number 3. I get to a 9 o'clock swing. Focus on number 3. I get to a 9 o'clock swing. Focusing on number 3. I get back down to 2. I can just cock my left wrist and turn back to 7 o'clock. Cock, turn, downswing. Cock, just take my back swing. All I'm doing is focus on power accumulator number 2. I'm cocking the left wrist and I'm going to start my backstroke. Once I'm there, I'm going to start my downstroke. Cock. I'm going to practice number 2. Then practice number 1. Bend the right elbow. That's power accumulation. That's releasing it. Power, release. Power, release. I'm going to bend my right elbow. There. Hey, devil dog. Army Ranger, 1st Battalion. So we're breaking down the understanding. First of all, you've all have your fitness evaluation and your fitness protocol. You've seen the training I did 2 Thursdays ago where we did a lot of this stuff with the body and hips and the squats and the lunges. That's perfect for stability, mobility, and balance. You have a flexibility training program. Randy, you can attest to how it's helped your back out. You guys do this with the body, and now we're really educating our brain, with small micro steps of mastery. So how many times last week after the zone 1 body control did you actually go through and see what your feet were doing? What were your knees doing? What were you doing at impact fix? Did you actually set some time here with your grip and stance and posture with impact fix? How many times can you do this? Because this is the movement, the feeling you're going to have impact after we do all this stuff. When you're down here, this is where you're going to get impact. This is impact fix. How many times did you pull the sword out? The reason you go from impact fix to pull the sword out, because the most common error that we all have is we stop after we hit the fucking ball. So you need to make sure you have a follow through and a finish. And how many times can you train your finish from impact fix? This, 1001, 1002, 1003. That's training. We're training to become unconscious, skilled badasses to control the club shaft, the club head, and the club face, so you can control the ball and you can score. So last week was all about body control, feet, knees, hips, hip turn, shoulder turn, the full pivot. We got start down, downstroke, release, impact fixed, follow through finish. Today we're talking about the arms and power package and release, releasing of number 2 and releasing of number 3. And you can do those simultaneously in a hitter's action by getting up to here and just hit right through. You know, that's what Lee Trevino did for 9 majors. He just hit just like that, and he just used all his muscle power. He got power cue number 1, and then 2 and 3, and he just released all that simultaneously at and through the ball with the follow through, and then the finish and follow through. You look at 95% of guys on tour, they're using the pull down. They're using centrifugal force, and they are releasing in a sequence. You see them release number 2 and 3 in a sequence, and that's why you'll see sometimes that they're flipping their hands over and releasing and rolling it too much. And that's why they get a lot of those that they don't show on TV. That's why they don't show Phil Mickelson driving much, because he's all over the place, because he's a big dumper of the energy and releasing and rolling and over rolling. But if you sit there and you work on the power package from the shoulders, arms, and this torso, that's the power package of the arms. That's where the power comes from. The pivot, we're going to have it for stability and balance in the right sequence. Your feet are going to be in the ground. Feet, knees, hips, hip turn, shoulder turn. That's the pivot motion. You can also see my power package in this arms. So as you can see the left arm, this here is power cue number 4. You see the power there. Power cue number 2, the club shaft is cocked. Power cue number 1, the right arm is bent. And I've turned it back. So I've got all 4 power accumulators in action, but you can train your brain which ones you want to work with and work with over and over and over and find out which are easier for you to use. So I find a lot of the times I'll just use 2 and 1, but when I really want to get a lot of accuracy with power, I make sure that I employ number 3, where I roll it back and I turn it through. And the key for me there is to make sure that I have my club face slightly open 1 or 2 degrees with arms fully stretched. That way, when I'm rotating my forearms through there as quickly as possible, when I hit that ball, if it's closed, it's going to cause a big draw. But if I get to a point where I can just have the right grip, the grip club the face where it's slightly open 1 or 2 degrees, and I do 1, 2, and 3. 4 is being used, but I'm only concentrating on 1, 2, and 3 during my practice. So I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Zone 2 is all about clubhead control. Power comes from the arms. Power and force comes from the arms. We have power accumulators 2 and 3 that we use a lot. Cocking and turning, uncocking and rolling. That's the release of accumulator number 2 and 3. We have wrist motion, we have hand motion. Power packages, power golf. You don't want to be misled by accuracy. Power first, because next week when we start talking about zone 3, which is Clubface Control, you understand that accuracy is a byproduct of having good power and being able to release the power accumulators 1, 2, 3, and 4, whichever ones you're using. So there's 4 power accumulators and 4 pressure points. I'm going to recap those one more time. Power accumulator number 1. First of all, we'll look at the pressure points. So I have pressure points. When I get my grip and I put my fingers over there, these 3 fingers to the left hand and lead hand is pressure point number 2, and power accumulator 2 is in the same spot. I accumulate power with the pressure from these 3 fingers, and I hinge my wrist up. And I take my lifeline of my trail hand and I put my grip on there, and that number, that lifeline, that bone pressing on top of my lead thumb, pressing down. This is an extensor action of this power package. The power package is my 2 shoulder joints and my arms together. This triangle is the power package. So as I take pressure point number 1 and I press down on my left thumb, well, notice when I press down, that's an extensor action. And when I bend my right elbow, that's power accumulator number 1. And when I straighten it out, tricep power. So I bend and tricep pushes it out. So I'm pressing down. That pressure point number 1 is pressure number 2. And as I bend my right elbow back, that's accumulation and power accumulator number 1. And as I straighten out my arm, that pressure is also putting down the shaft. So I can use 2 and 1 pretty easily to build a consistent swing with a lot of accuracy, but still a lot of power. And so that would still be a sequence, a simultaneous release where I'm just releasing number 2 and number 1. And since I'm cocking and I'm bending my right elbow, I'm going to have a slight turn on the way back for power accumulator number 3. So power accumulator number 3 is a turning motion back. And we talked about this index finger on the shaft, that pressing to the side, that's pressure point number 3. And that's the secret to the golf swing and control is at any point throughout the swing, I can sense where the club head is at. And club head is power, and it's also helps with accuracy. So pressure point number 2, 3, and 1 is all on the club. Impact fix, I can feel pressure point number 2, number 1, and number 3, all at impact fix. And once I extend my right arm and I press down, that's pressure point number 1. And now as you can see, I've got my power package right at impact fix. I got a flat left wrist. It's just our training we did the other day, or last week. So this power package, this extensor action, the this lifeline of my trail wrist, when I press down on the shaft, or if I take my hand and place it over my right arm, or my left arm, and I extend out my right arm, that's extensor action. That's extending this power package. We want to keep this power package fully extended through the backstroke and the downstroke to have a consistent radius to have better ball striking. If you're hitting it thin, or if you're hitting it thin or hitting it fat, at some point this power package is losing its extensor action, this rigid triangle. You can really focus on that by taking this, pressing down on the shaft and extending this power package. So we got power accumulator 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 is pressure against here, pressure point 4, and power accumulator 4 up here. So I can employ all 4 of them. You can train all 4 of them to work together to become a master ball striker. So that's going to cover our session today. Clubhead control. I want to control the club head. And I can always control the club head with pressure point number 3. And we get power by using the 4 power accumulators. But we've got to train them. Last week we trained our body at different stages of the golf swing, from impact fixed to address, to startup, backstroke, top, downstroke, start down, downstroke, release, impact fix, follow through, and finish. Go through these body control zone 1s, sensing what the feet are doing at startup, what the knees are doing, the backstroke, what the hips are doing at the top, what the hip turn is doing on the start down, what the shoulders are doing, downstroke, what the wrist motion and hand motion is doing at release, where your body is at impact fix. You've got the power package fully extended out, follow through, and finish. You can always, without ever hitting the ball, you can always work on individual power accumulators. So if I can sit here and I just cock number 2 and bend my right elbow, right there, that's power accumulation 2 and 1. And then just go to the top. 2 and 1, release 2 and 1. I can train 3 and 4, where I can turn my forearm back and elevate my left arm. There's 3 and 4. So I can just work on 3 and 4. Turn. I can cock and do 1 and 2. Just 1 and 2. It's not going to happen overnight. You've got to train over and over, 3 to 5 minutes of block practice every day to really understand how to educate the hands, how to educate the body control. But this whole zone 2 is about power control, and that's arms and the power package. Arms and the power package. Arms and the power package, and there's power accumulation where you cock the left wrist, you turn the forearm back, you bend the right elbow, you elevate the arm. Those are all 4 power accumulators. And you're going to have to release those power accumulators. I can release number 4 by flinging off my chest. I can release number 2 by uncocking my left wrist. I can release number 3 by rolling it over. And I can release number 1 by straightening out my tricep. So for all of you that need to get on my calendar and do your one-on-one monthly checkup, let's rock that out. Other than that, just ping me if you need any help, and let's kick some ass. I'll talk to you guys soon.